So welcome to lecture number 7. So this week we're going to talk about technology, innovation, and process design. So we're going to have a lecture about what business processes are, and most important, we're going to talk about the thing we call information flow modeling, in which you basically model the most important flows of information throughout your organization. You need to do that for the business plan, and you need to do that in order to advise on how you can use information technology to support those information flows. So in this lecture, we'll talk about business process and information flows. So first, some general remarks. So next week there is no lecture because we have an autumn break and you may have some midterms. We start again the week after next week, specifically on Wednesday, October 27 at 2:45 p.m. in CZ10. So from then on, the lectures will be on Wednesday and the lectures will be offline. They will be streamed and they will be available afterwards, but the lectures will be offline. So it would be great if most of you could join the actual physical lectures now that we can. For next time, we have a lecture on information systems. The lecture is also not on Canvas yet, but now I'll finish it today or tomorrow. So we have a lecture about information systems. I'm going to talk about the most important information systems in an organization, and there is an online plugin. So there is an additional lecture in which I explain the basics of technology and software and networks. So I'll explain what a computer is, I explain what software actually means, I explain how the internet and networks work. So if you already know a lot about hardware, software, and computer technology, then you may skip the lecture, the online plugin. If you don't know what a bit or a byte is or what the TCP/IP protocol is, then you are advised to watch the online plugin in order to get the basic understanding of hardware, software, and technology. And the online plugin is exam literature, so you have to know it for the exam. Okay, having said that, all the formalities, so let's go to business processes and etc. I promised that the lecture would be a bit shorter this week, so let's see if I can keep my promise. So what are we going to do? We're going to talk about business processes, process reengineering or business process reengineering, and about systems design and information flow modeling in that order. So let's start with business process. So over the past 2 weeks, we talked about basically what an organization is. So we first talked about innovation, and now we're going to talk about the organization surrounding the innovation. We talked about the strategy of the organization, actually what is the organization there for. Last week, we talked about structure and culture of an organization, which is also a way to classify an organization. And this is the last way to classify an organization. So by looking at the business processes in an organization. So we saw a basic process of an organization last week when I showed the value chain. You see it here on the top right. It's the basic process of an organization, from basically what comes in as raw materials, the amount that you need to take care of in your inbound logistics, and what you do with it all the way through marketing and after sales service. That's the main process of an organization. I also said it doesn't go over every organization, because if you provide a service or if you're kind of a platform organization, it doesn't really work that way. But this is the standard way of seeing the main process of an organization from input to output. So that's a process. And you need processes in organizations in order to, well, be organized. So you need business processes in your organization because that allows you to determine the tasks that you need to do in the organization. So you need to classify everything that the organization has to do in in manageable, concrete subtasks. You need to assign those tasks to units. Units can be people, but can also be teams. Sorry. I was a bit striped. So you need to assign those tasks to units, can be teams, people, departments, and then you have to arrange those units in a decision-making framework. Sounds complicated, but it basically means you need to do this first, then you need to hand over the task to someone else, and then that other person needs to work on the second part of the task. So that's a decision-making framework, so the task goes from start to finish in a specific order. And basically that is what we call organizing, and that is an organization of a business process. So that's basically where the word organization comes from. So a business process is the task that we need to do. We classify those tasks into multiple manageable subtasks. We tell people or units to do those specific tasks, and then we arrange those tasks in a specific order. And that is the way we organize an organization. You have many different processes in an organization, and you can classify those processes hierarchically. You can have a very broad, specific process, like the figure on the top right. So basically, a very generic process from stuff goes in, stuff goes out of your organization. But you can subdivide that into processes that are like really specific. So, for example, when I create a lecture, I start with a PowerPoint slide, I search for information, and you can even get more concrete like that. So, for example, if you sign up for a course, you go to a service, you sign up for a course, then information gets sent to a system, and someone checks that information. So you can be very specific. I have more examples of that on later slides. You also have different processes for different parts of the organization. So if you look at the figure on the bottom right, sorry, you see there is a management process. Those are people thinking about strategy, the managers. You have the accounting process, people who do everything, handle everything regarding finances, HR, development, production. So every major department and part of the organization can be defined as doing a or multiple different processes. And it is classified as arrows here in the bottom figure because an arrow defines a process. So the management process is usually not really a process from start to finish, but it is a process in the sense that managers, and especially people higher up the organization, think about where we go in the coming years as an organization. So what will our strategy be? What will our goals be for the coming years? And there's also a process, that's finding information about the organization and its environment, thinking about what to do, developing a plan. So also that can be classified as a process. So we have a strategy. What is the organization about? We have a structure of the organization. So how do we classify the different units of the organization, their relationship to each other? And we have processes in the organization. So the tasks that need to be done in an organization and who does them when. So those are the three main structural ways in which we look at organizations. So why is this relevant for us? Well, it's relevant because we need to know what an organization is, what defines an organization. But also because we can analyze processes in an organization and can optimize those processes in an organization using technology. So if we exactly define a business process, we define a business process as a set of activities from start to finish, including the flow, decisions, and loops of these activities, which then create a concrete deliverable outputs to some output unit, to some other unit. for example, another department, a team in an organization, or the customer. And on the right, there is an example of a specific process. So we have a customer order. So we get a customer order in from someone outside of the organization. We open that order. We need to fill that order. Is there a rush? No. Regular delivery? Yes. Overnight delivery. If that's done, we send an invoice. If we receive the payment on a due date, we close the order. If not, we send a payment reminder, and then we check if that payment is received on a due date again. So that's a loop. And if yes, finally, we close the order. So that's a simple business process. And you can be even more specific. So for example, this is just an order and the invoice in one, but you could also think, for example, okay, maybe the first part of the order is about delivery, then it gets sent to the, or maybe at the same time, the order gets sent to the financial department who handles the invoice. So you have two parallel processes. With a delivery, you can be more specific than that. You can say, well, if we have regular delivery, then we have to get the product, send the product to a, or ask a delivery service to come to us, hand them over the product, and then, well, etc., etc. So you can even be more specific in a process like that. But basically, this is a basic process. So it's a set of activities from start to finish, including the flow and all the decisions and the loops in that process. And we create something deliverable. We send out the project, we close the order. Or we make a, for example, we make part of a product and then hand it over to another organization, to another unit. Sorry. So another example of a business process. That's a process that you do when you go to a bookstore and buy something. So you go to a bookstore, you search the shelves, you see if the book that you want is available. If yes, you purchase the book, you take it home. If no, you ask the clerk to search for the book. If found, you purchase the book. If not, you inquire about ordering. If you're not able to order, you go somewhere else. If you are able to order, you place the order. Your clerk places the order, and he receives the book. He notifies you. You return to the store. You purchase the book. You take the book home. So this is a business process. So you can imagine that if you go from an offline brick and mortar store, bookstore, to an online store, this process becomes much easier. And a lot of this is handled by a system instead of a clerk. So you go to the online bookstore, you search for a book. If the book is available, you can immediately purchase the book. If the book is not immediately available, you can also immediately purchase the book, but it will take a couple of additional days to arrive, which is another internal process. And all this is handled by a system. Yeah, good question, Matthew. What determines how specifically you describe the business processes inside your organization? That is entirely determined by what you want to accomplish. So in a few moments, we're going to talk about business process reengineering. And those are methods of redesigning processes in organizations. And there are lots of consultancy companies, with Accenture and many others that have specialized in these kinds of techniques. So they come into your organization, they classify processes in your organization in a very, very detailed manner. And then they see if they can combine, cut out processes, or in general, make them more efficient. So what they do is they make, they create processes and they they make them in a graphical way, as detailed as what you see here on screen. And they do that because they specifically want to see, okay, can we cut something out of the process to make it more efficient, because it's cheaper, especially if you do it like 1 million times a day. So that's an option. If you want to get a high-level overview of the main tasks that are done in an organization, then you can be less specific and have a more general overview. So basically, we have a few different departments who each develop a different product, and you have a general overview process for all these. So it kind of depends on your goals. Business process reengineering is very specific. It's so specific as this example on screen here. For our goals and for the business plan, we have something called information flow modeling, and that's usually a bit less specific. So, because it focuses on the information that needs to go from one unit to another unit, and not on the very specifically detailed task that everyone has to do. Okay. So if you look at what at process management, it used to be seen, and still for many organizations, larger projects, business processes are still seen as like more fixed and structured processes in your organization, so that you need to set up at the beginning. And then, of course, sometimes you need to redesign a process, or you have a reorganization and you need to restructure your organization. And as a result, you also need to restructure your processes. But in general, there is fairly little change, or not a continuous change in your business process. So this is traditional process management. If you want to develop such a process, and if you want to develop technology to support those processes, you use more traditional methods of process engineering. And they are usually called waterfall methods of, in process engineering, they're called traditional methods of development. And in software engineering, they are called the waterfall method of development. And with that, we have structured methodologies such as business process reengineering, structured methodologies for project managers such as Prince 2 and 6, and structured methods for quality control such as Six Sigma. You don't need to remember all of that, but I am pretty sure that you will encounter these methods when you start working in an organization. So, for example, I used to work at the IT department of the university. And I used to work in somewhat larger projects in which we develop new systems. And for that, we used the Prince 2 project management approach, which is a very structured way of developing a project from start to finish. And usually you use that for very large scale projects. They also use that methodology for huge infrastructure projects, buildings, roads, those kinds of things. So they use Prince 2 for that. And although it has become less popular now that we have more actual ways of development. Business process reengineering, we're going to talk about that later on, because that is pretty important. And Six Sigma, but you have like 50 other methods that are all basically methods for quality control in your organization. We don't have to remember that, but you will probably get across Six Sigma when you work in an organization. So basically, those are all more traditional methods of managing and analyzing business process. What you now see more oftentimes when people work on process management, people usually have, so if you look at how organizations currently function, people usually work in more rapidly evolving teams. So people work on a project, or they work on several projects at the same time. And once they're done with one project, they go to another team or work on another project. So you see that processes in organizations are more flexible, and they develop more quickly. Well, that is what we call, as in a very general term, agile development. And agile development is really hip. So in every IT organization or game design or marketing organization, everyone is talking about agile development. But it basically means methods of development which are not the traditional, very structured way of development. So to give an example, and I'll get back to this slide in a moment. So this is the traditional waterfall method of systems development. So you do a system analysis, you design the system, you do a technical design of the system, you program the system, you test, you have conversion, you check it, and then you have production and maintenance. So system analysis is basically, okay, what do we need? Then system design is the technical design of the system, like on paper. So who needs what information, what does the system need to do? So once you have all that, then you program the system, then you test, then you check and implement, and you have the production and maintenance. And that is the traditional way of systems development. If you look at other ways, that they are generally also have like a very fixed structure from one stage to the next, to the next, to the next. Agile development methods basically all say, well, this is fine, but we need way more flexibility in approach. So we need to have quicker ways of implementing the system of conversion, and we need to be more flexible also in the early stages. So maybe we should quickly implement something and then go back to analysis if it doesn't turn out to work, or maybe we should involve our customers in the system analysis stage, so that we can be more quick to adapt, well, etc. That is basically all of that is called agile. So there's no one agile one. I think I have a, if you look for agile development, you get figures like this, so that they may be different in different sources. But it basically means that, we still have a kind of a, I'm again using my hands to point out on screen, but it doesn't matter. So if you look at it from left to right, there is still a kind of a process going on. So we start and we end somewhere, but we define the process in different sprints. And within each sprint, we design, we build, we test, we review, and maybe we go through the circle a bunch of times. Then we launch. Then we get to the next stage of the project. Then we go into the same circle again a couple of times. We design, build, test, review, redesign, build, test, review, redesign, etc. And then we enter the third sprint or stage, and etc. until we're done. So that's basically agile development. Back to this slide. And with agile development come more flexible methodologies for software development and other project management. So, for example, rapid prototyping, Scrum, software engineering, or Scrum project development, or project management in general, are flexible methodologies which are agile, so which are specifically designed to work in this way. So as an example, prototyping or rapid prototyping sounds cool, is we identify basic requirements and develop a working prototype, but as soon as possible, we use the prototype. Is the user satisfied? Perfect. Is the user not satisfied? We revise and enhance the prototype, and we go back and implement it again until it's done. And there you can clearly see like this loop is similar to this loop here. So, you know, there are entire courses on all those methodologies. So I have my Prince 2 diploma for project management, and it was a full day course, like 2 times 10 hours in order to learn Prince 2 methodology. There are entire courses at the university which teach you business process reengineering, or which teach you agile development. So it goes way too far for this course to focus on all these business process redesign and analysis technologies and systems and techniques. But I think it is useful to at least know a bit of what they are, where they fit, so that you are basically prepared when you enter the workflow. And probably many of you will get your Scrum diploma or some other diploma or certificate for agile development once you start working in an organization. But important is that an organization consists of numerous processes. If you want to redesign a process, or if you want to implement technology in order to support a process, then you have to develop and manage that process. You can do that in a structured way, which are the waterfall or traditional methods of development using technology or methodologies such as business process reengineering. Or you can do that in a more flexible way, which is called agile development, for which you use like the tools like Scrum or rapid prototyping. So now you know basically the hierarchy and where all these terms come from and how they fit into an organization as a whole. Okay, rapid prototyping, agile development, etc. I want to talk a bit about process reengineering, and then we go to information flow modeling. So the reason that I want to talk about business process reengineering is twofold. First of all, it is pretty important and still pretty fairly much used in organizations and especially by consultancy companies. Second of all, it's important to know a bit about business process reengineering, because it is a structured way to look at process in organizations. So when you know a bit about business process reengineering, you also learn about, okay, how can we classify and structure processes in an organization. So what is business process reengineering? Well, it's something that has been around since the 90s or so, maybe the 80s. And it's a way to redesign your business processes in order to improve performance and efficiency. So you want to make your processes in your organization better. Usually organizations do this, so this formal business process reengineering, when they want to accomplish significant change in an organization. So usually they hire external consultancy companies in order to look through the organization, define the processes, and see what needs to change. Last week I talked about that you can classify the structure of an organization in terms of departments. You have a marketing department, you have a HR department, but that nowadays you see that that many organizations also classify themselves in terms of other type of units. So you make product 1, you make product 2, or you are team 1, you are team 2. So organizations become less and less compartmentalized and more integrated and organized along the processes, or actually the things that they do, so the tasks. So this has been going on for a few decades now. And that's why we have business process reengineering. So in order to go from the departmental and compartmentalized focus of an organization more to a business process focus, in which we redesign the organization into business process instead of compartmentalized. The key here is performance and efficiency. So we do this because we want to optimize the organization. And very important, usually information technology is a key enabler of change. So usually you redesign business processes with the goal of implementing information technology or information systems in the organization that make your processes more efficient. And actually, if you look at theories of management, and if you look at management throughout the ages, business processes fits in really nicely into the history of process management. So we started out with Taylorism, so Henry Ford and its factory line, which is really what was called the first theory of scientific management, where it really focused on efficiency of production. So the basic factory line to make the Model T Ford. And that was so basically before Ford and his T Ford, and before Taylor, who basically described this in a scientific way. We did not really think about organizations in terms of processes. So we think, well, we have an organization. So there is, someone in the village in the 19th century had a bakery and he baked bread. And there is no such thing as of course, there is a process, but it's like one person who bakes bread and who is responsible for his own organization. And that's it. And only when Henry Ford started with his production line, with his factory line, we started thinking about organizations in ways of processes and how we can optimize them. So that's where it started. Then after the Second World War, with the economic boom in the 50s and 60s, we started thinking about, okay, how can we optimize our service? How can we optimize our processes? Then we got things like total quality management and Kaizen from Japan. Originally, it means change for the better in Japanese, which are all basically methods of looking at your organization in order to continuously improve efficiency in your organization. And business process reengineering really fits well into that whole paradigm. So basically, it's a way to improve your processes in your organization. I'm getting a lot of WhatsApp messages here, and because my browser WhatsApp is still open. One moment. Okay, that's gone. So why would you need business process reengineering? Well, this relates to what I said a moment ago, that it's really helpful to look. It's a really helpful methodology to look at how organizations work, because BPR allows you to identify and document existing processes. It allows you to identify inefficiencies. It allows you to, officially called, create models of improved processes, but basically means optimize those processes. And then we have some more formal uses of BPR, so capture and enforce business rules for performing and automating processes. So, for example, if we know that a certain process always is fixed in a certain way, then we can maybe automate and optimize that process. Then maybe we can use a system, information technology, to automate that process and to create rules on how that process should function. It also allows us to integrate existing processes, existing systems to support process improvement. So we can think of, okay, what kind of information technology do we have in an organization, and how can we use that information technology, or how is that information technology used in our organization processes, and can we optimize that? So can we cut out people? Can we cut out technology? Can we upgrade technology for more efficiency, etc.? And if we have such a structured approach, we can also check if it has worked. So we can measure the impact, so we can verify that they work. So, for example, we can see if it's actually cheaper, quicker. So that's what we use business process reengineering. Okay, so how do we do that? So like I said, there are several methodologies for business process reengineering. Did I say that before? I don't know. But there are several methods for business process reengineering, and most of them are licensed by consultancy agencies who have their own method, which they sell for a huge fee together with consultancy in order to analyze processes in the organization. And this is what many consultants do. You know, they analyze processes in an organization from a strategic level to an operational level in order to see how they can improve that. And basically all methodologies focus on, analyzing and improving existing processes. You don't have to remember everything that's below that in preparation, process, think, etc. So it's basically they analyze processes by, going from, okay, what exactly we do need to change, and how are we going to get you through that process, redesign the process, and finally get everyone along so that everyone accepts change. And all methodologies apply certain modeling techniques, and most of them have certain software in order to design and redesign those processes. So in the figure I have shown before, this is, well, it's a very bad figure, but there is software out there that you can use to create figures or processes like this. And if you define a business process or analyze a business process as detailed as this is what you call an activity diagram, which is a very concrete way of modeling a process in an organization. It's called an activity diagram because every box is an activity, is something that someone does. So we open an order, we fill an order, we deliver, we send an invoice, we send the payment reminder, we close the order, done. So like I said, there are official methodologies, software packages that do all this. So basically they all do something similar. So they have activities, the boxes, they have flows, process flows, which are arrows. We have decisions to be made, which are the diamond shapes here. We have loops, which you can see on the bottom, and we have a start and a finish. So we start the process once we get notified or get a product or whatever, and when it's finished, we send out, we deliver output to the customer or another unit of the organization. So this is an activity diagram. I have another example. So for example, this is what I do, my activity diagram for your exam. So we start, you do the exam, I assess the exam. Do you have lower than a 5.5 for your exam? No, you have to do the exam again. Yes, I register your grade, the end. These elements of BPR, you mean activity flow decisions? Nah, no. No, you don't know. I'm not going to ask which elements are there of a BPR. Oh, so I now saw that someone said that the question was a direct message instead of a general question, sorry. So someone asked, oh, that wasn't everyone asked. So you don't have to remember all those elements exactly. What you it's mainly just to show you what a business process is. Then I have a direct message. Yes, it was the same image. So someone asked, that was the same image as the business process. So what is the difference with business process reengineering? There is no difference with business process reengineering. So I've shown this image, what you see on the right side also here, because this is a business process. And this is still a business process. Also because it's so detailed, we also call it an activity diagram. Diagram. Yeah, forgot to checking for cheating. Well, that's actually a good point, Jens. So I forgot to checking for cheating in a diagram. Like I said, you can go as detailed as you want. So, so for example, here, there you make the exam, I assess the exam. But in assessing the exam, I will not only grade the exam myself, but Kim and Peter will help me. So if I were to split up that process, I would collect the exams from the exam administration, because you will make the exam on paper. Then I'm going to sort the exams along in different questions. Then I'm going to distribute the questions to different people. Then they are going to grade. Then I'm going to integrate it, etc. So I can be even more specific. The exam, by the way, is on December 15th now. And the re-exam is already on January 12th. So we are going to we are going to grade the exam in that week. So we hope to have the grades like 18th or the 19th of December already. So you have plenty of time to prepare for the re-exam. Sidestep, sorry. So you also don't have to remember this, but you can usually those modeling software packages, so you can have like roles and swim lanes, because if you look at this process, the exam is made by the students, the assessment is done by me, the administration registers the grades, so you can have different roles, and you can have different processes side by side, conducted by different units. So, and these are all not really important here to remember, but these are all basically ways of modeling that. And this is, if you really like this, there are courses on this in your business administration and economics department, and also, if you work for a consultancy agency, then you may encounter this as well. Okay, so I should just a short break until, let's say, 5:40, and then I think I will need half an hour. Yeah, half an hour for the second part. So let's have a short break until 5:40. So let's continue. So before the break, a bit about modeling and activity modeling. So now I want to talk about information flow modeling, mostly. But in order to do that, I need to explain one slide about systems design. Because if, well, business So we talked about business processes. We talked about a way to identify and optimize those business processes. And you notice that before the break, when I talked about methods for business process analysis and reengineering, they were also methods for software development. So because the two are quite closely related. So if we use business process reengineering or other methodologies in a context of information technology, so we have we use information technology, then in a business process, then we call it system design, because then, for example, we're thinking about, okay, how can we use a social media system or a customer relationship management system in our organization in order to optimize or make better the way we deal with our customers in our organization. So when we think of business processes in relationship to information technology, we often call it systems design. But it's basically the same as business process reengineering and business process. So we analyze and improve the business process. We analyze the role of information in that process, and we improve that information using IT. So what's important if we think about information technology is that we do not think about technology itself. So we do not think about computers and servers or whatever. We think about information. So we think about the information that flows through an organization, and we can optimize that information and those information flows in an organization using technology. And if you do that, if you use technology to optimize and capture and gather information, that is information technology. So you have to look at processing organizations. You then have to look at, okay, what information do we need for those processing organizations? And then you can think of how can we support that using information technology. So there's basically a kind of a hierarchy of process design and thinking about processes and IT in organizations. So you start with, the higher representation of the organization, the value chain, the organization charts, etc. Then you can look at processes in the organization, the business process reengineering. Then you can focus specifically on the information that we use in the organization in those processes. We call that information flow analysis. We use information flow diagrams for that. So we do that to identify information flows and specify the use of information technology, information systems. And that's most useful to us. So for the business plan in which you think about technology in the organization, we are at the level of information flows. And then we can go even more specific. So if we have those information flows, we can use that to actually design a system and design the data and the information in such a system that such a system should contain. And that is what we call officially context and data flow diagrams and entity relationship diagrams. And those entity relationship diagrams are really, really the most basic level of thinking about information and data in your organization and in information technology. And this is what we are going to talk about, entity relationship diagrams, in a lecture about database design. So basically, higher organizational representation we discussed in the previous lecture, so strategy and structure. Process modeling we did before the break. Information flow modeling we're going to do now. This is way too specific for us, and this we are going to do in the lecture on database design. So, information flow modeling. What is it? It's a bit of an information-rich slide. I'm sorry, I should have done that across two slides. So information flow modeling provides a kind of a high-level overview of processes and the information you need in those processes and organizations. So you can connect information to a process diagram such as this, because with every arrow there is information that also is sent. But it can also be a bit less detailed than that. So it can also be on something somewhat more higher level than such a very specific activity diagram. So usually less detailed than process modeling, or I could have said less detailed than such a specific activity diagram. But we use that to identify key flows of information in an organization. So basically the information that flows through different units as they do their work. And remember, units can be people, teams, departments, but basically organization units which do something, do a certain task. And we can analyze the information that comes from and goes into each different unit in order to determine whether every unit receives the necessary information, so that no information is missing or you receive no redundant or too much information. We can determine whether the information is correct in terms of accuracy, speed and timeliness, sufficiency and cost. And we can see if we can make other improvements, for example, by redesigning the information flow, or we can use information technology for an information flow. So a bit more specific. So for example, now I am a unit, I am giving information to you, the students, and other units. Which is a very generic way of submitting it, of an information flow, but a lecture is an information flow. With the lecture comes a PowerPoint slide, another information flow, the books, which is another information flow. And we can see if everything is necessary. Well, I reread the chapters for this week, and I already have seen that there is a lot of information in the 2 chapters that we don't really need for this lecture. So basically, the book chapters for this week give too much information. So tip for the exam, focus on the lecture, the slides. So we can actually classify all those information flows in terms of, okay, do we receive everything we need? Is there something missing? If we receive that information, is it accurate? So is it correct? Do we receive it on time? Is it, again, sufficient? So is everything there? And how much does it actually cost in terms of time and money in order to get that information there? And if we have that, then we can see, can we optimize it? Can we use some information technology or other means in order of optimizing the information flow? So for example, maybe instead of Zoom, we can have an offline lecture, or maybe instead of me, you can have a better teacher. So we can see if we can optimize that information flow. But I think this all will land better with an example. So you can make an information diagram before we go to the examples, basically the same way as a process diagram, only easier. Because now we simply have units, so the source and destination, so really the name of the person, the part of the organization, basically the name of the units. And we have the information flow together with a label. So what information is it? So for example, if you look at figure 10.4 here, it's sales sends customer order details to accounts, and they probably will bill the customer. So this unit sends this information to this unit. And that is how we can classify an information flow, a very simple information flow. You can also, as is listed here, see kind of the system boundary. So for example, if you go from one major organizational unit to the other, you can also create a kind of boundary in order to know what is a coherent unit in the organization. So for example, this one can be the customer. So the customer is outside of the organization. And then this can be everything in the organization. And this, for example, is again outside the organization, which can be delivery. Example on the next slide. Let's first do this example. So this is a very simple example of an information flow. It's also, so this does not contain all the information flows you need to book a flight. So this is just an example. So this is what happens when an airline booking department has to communicate with the airline crew on an airport in order to make sure that every passenger is there and that everyone gets what they need. So of course you have more units involved, but this is to simplify it very much in order to make the concept of information flow more understandable. So you have an airline booking department. The airline booking department has a list of all the passengers who are going to be on the plane. They send that passenger list to the check-in desk. So the check-in desk has a boarding list of all the passengers who will board. So once you board the airplane, everyone, so you give your, so you check into the airline board. Oh my God. You basically check in, you show your boarding pass, and you board the plane. So once everyone is on the plane, or once everyone has gone through the check-in desk, the check-in desk knows if everyone has boarded the plane. So they send that boarding list to the airline booking department. So to have them check, okay, everyone who has booked the flight is on the plane, or some people are missing and have missed a flight. The check-in desk also sends that list to the airline crew, so the crew knows who's actually on the plane and that everyone is there, or that's too late, so they can take off. Well, if you look at another process, a concurrent process, the airline booking department has a list of the passengers together with a list of meal requirements, a vegetarian, vegan, etc. They send this to the catering department. The catering department makes sure the meals are there, but they also send the meal list to the airline crew. So the airline crew knows that person on seat 7A has a vegetarian meal. So they send the meal list to the airline crew. So here you see the information in a very simple information flow diagram. Well, if you look at this diagram, do you have any idea how you can improve this? So is there something missing? Would you add information? Would you remove information? So does anyone have any idea what you could do if you could add to this information flow, or can make it more efficient? Direct link between airline booking department and airline crew. I also don't know that's possible. I think that goes beyond my knowledge of how an airport or how an airline actually works. It could be that you don't need to check in desk, but usually when I board a plane, there is some kind of check-in. So why is the boarding list going to the airline crew? Yeah, I think so that they can check if everyone is actually on board the plane and no one is on the plane who shouldn't be there. But maybe we don't need that. Ah, yeah, at the gate. Yeah. Yeah, this example may go beyond my my knowledge of how this actually works. But you could be right. So it could be that the airline crew can do the check-in at the gate, and then that's enough. Makes sense. Well, so I could imagine that the airline crew does a head count and then gives it back to the check-in desk to see if everyone is actually in the plane. Don't know if that's necessary, but that could be a kind of a feedback loop between the check-in desk and the airline crew. Could be. You could also say, for well, maybe the airline crew wants to give feedback on meals. So if the person in seat 7A has said, well, I don't really like this meal, that they can make a note and they can send it back to the catering department. It's not a necessary information flow, but it may be useful feedback for the catering department to improve their meals. So it's not absolutely necessary, but it may be used to give better service. So this is how you can look at an information flow diagram. So this is also what you have to do for your business plan. So you have to think of, okay, what units do we have in our organization that makes the innovation? What information do they need? And how does the information flow through the different units? So for example, if you sell something, so if you make a concrete product which you then sell, you have an information flow from the customer to the manufacturing, to the ordering, to the marketing and delivery units in your organization. They all need information. And the next step will then be, how will you manage that information? So, for example, if you have a simple process that a customer orders a product and then you bill that customer and send out that product, you can manage that information very basic. So you can have to, if the customer wants to order a product, they have to call you. Then you write down in a notepad on paper, you write down the order. Then you physically walk to the order department and hand them that note. But that may not be that efficient. So maybe you want some kind of system, some kind of information technology in place in order to make this more efficient, in order to optimize this process. And that is what information technology does. So information technology looks at information flows such as this and thinks, okay, can we optimize that? Can we use information technology for this? And that's also, so you never need information technology. Well, you never strictly need information technology in your organization. You know, I can do everything without technology. It's only hugely inefficient. So, for example, I could gather you in a lecture room and then teach my lectures offline, which you're going to do in a couple of weeks. I can verbally communicate the grades to you. So, you know, I could ask you to come to my office and I can give you the grade. But that's hugely inefficient. So we use some technology to optimize this process. So we have Canvas for the slides, we have Zoom for the lectures, we record the lectures, we have SpeedGrader and Osiris for the grades. So those are all information technologies used to optimize and improve the information flows. So that's what an information technology does. So another example. So this is an example which was in the chapter of in the book by Boddy, Boki. And this is an example of what happens when a student enrolls for a course. And here, this is a more extensive information flow diagram. So you have the student signs up to a course. So the student and course details, the student name, the course the student signed up for, go through a the student information center. SIC is the student information center. They give the enrollment form so the student can enroll to the student. So this is again information. Then the student information system can send the list of students to the finance department, and they can bill the students. I don't know what LIA stands for anymore, but you know, they send invoices to the students. Then, of course, they send the list of students to the department. The department sends a class list to the teacher. The Student Information Center also sends a list of new students to the student union, so they can issue a student union membership, whatever, to the students. They also give the list of new students to the library, so the library can issue the library card also to the students. So this is a somewhat more extensive information flow diagram. And here you see this is everything that happens in the student administration department of the university. So this is everything that happens here. And probably, well, not probably, they have a, if you look at the role of information technology in this information diagram, then this is where they have information technology. So there is a student administration system which takes care of all of this automatically. So of course you can do this with all separate kind of systems, or you can even do this manually, or you can send the list of new students via email. But you can also say, well, maybe you have an information system which keeps track of all students and all courses, which can automatically send out this information to those other units. And that's what an information technology does. So I have so maybe we can experiment with one more example here. But first I want to, I'm already up. Oops. I'm so sorry. I was planning to say I am almost done. So what can you use an information diagram like this for? Well, like I said, you can use it to optimize information. So to think about the information flows in a diagram in terms of, here it is, accuracy, speed and timeliness, sufficiency, and cost. You can see that this is the first time I teach this lecture because it's chaotic, as always, and there are a lot of spelling errors still here. Sorry about that. So you can look at an information flow model and see and check the information flows in terms of this. Is all information there? Can we improve the information and optimize it? And you can do that so that you can advise on new information technologies to be put into place. So you can think about information technologies that can support those information flows. And again, of course, this relates to units are connected to correct information. This relates to is all information there. So you actually need an information flow diagram or some similar diagram in order to design a system. So in order to know what kind of information technology do we need in an organization, you need to know what information you need to handle in your organization. And of course, oftentimes when organizations implement information technology, they don't always think this through to such an extent. So they often implement systems and update systems without official information flow diagrams. But if you want to do this correctly, you first have to think about what information do we need in our organization, how do the information flows work, and then think of the technology you can use to support that. Also, if you look at this information flow diagram, then you can see, well, there is all kinds of information that needs to be stored somewhere. So we need student details, we need course details, we need to we need to know which students take which course. We need to take care of the grades. We need to make sure that every student has paid their fees, etc. So we need to store and handle a lot of information and data in order to make this all happen. And you store all that information, data more specifically, in a database. So you can use an information diagram like this to make and create a specific information system in order to create a database for all that information. And that is what we are going to do in lecture 10. I think there is, I want to move this slide. This will go too far. So that's why we need information flow modeling. And in the next lecture, we'll talk about specific information systems that will support information flows like this. So maybe we can do, maybe we can think about a simple information flow, which may be a good practice also for your business plan, maybe also for the exam. Now let's do one for the second one. So a customer ordering a mobile phone online from Coolblue, an online website which sells phones. So if you want, if you don't want, we can just also quit the lecture, and maybe we can do this as a final example. I can start the whiteboard. So whiteboard. Okay, a customer orders a mobile phone from Coolblue. Then we can create a kind of an information flow model. I'll do the first one. So we start out with the customer. Then what? Order information, absolutely. Order info, yep. And where does that information go to? Yeah, it goes to a Coolblue database. Actually, a very good point. What is important is that a unit here is always an organization unit. So it's a department, a team, a function, person, whatever, and they use databases. So they have the Coolblue database, so the Coolblue database in which all the information is stored. But someone needs to handle this Coolblue database. But someone needs to handle. So which department or which person will get that order information? Am I on the order? Yeah, my takers. Yeah, why not? I also don't know what they're called, but so they take the order. Then what happens? Is there other information involved? Yeah, order pickers and shipping. Let's do it more simple. So we have, let's immediately do shipping. So the order and the information about the order is I'm not sure why I do info order instead of the other way around, but never mind. So let's send to shipping. And then what? Yeah, information about the order is sent to the financial department. So I think the customer will give some financial information to the financial department. Probably this is multiple types of information, but because this will probably first go through IGEN or some other payment agency, and then it will go to the financial department. But that's a bit too complicated for now. So some information about payment is going to the financial department, and the financial department should probably send this to the order department, because you probably only want to ship the order once the transaction is successful. So payment is a success, and if the payment is a success, it's that the payment is a success is sent to the order department, and then the order says to the shipping department, here is your order, go ahead. And then the shipping department sends the product to the customer. Shipping also sends information back to the customer. Yep, shipping updates, absolutely. Shipping updates. Yeah, track and trace. Yeah. So that's absolutely, so that's track and trace. And again, there's probably other organization involved here with other information flows. For example, if it's sent out to PostNL or UPS or something. Something else? After sales? Yeah, well, yeah. Let's just, yes, but I'm running out of space here. So that's update ticket lab plus after sales. It should be two different arrows because it's different process, it involves different processes, but I'm terrible at drawing. Yeah. And after sales, of course, can also be another information flow from the customer to, for example, the marketing department or the after sales department. I'm running out of space. I myself would do from shipping to the order department. So information is mobile phones in stock -1. So that the order department knows, okay, we have one less mobile phone, so one less Apple iPhone, whatever, less in stock, so that the order department can order new phones if they run out. So something like that. So this is a very simple example of an information flow diagram, and probably, well, most likely, Coolblue and many other organizations have they have a system in place which basically takes care of all of this. So they have an enterprise resource management system, so a big system, a big information technology system in our organization, which can take care of everything. So which can handle the order, which can handle payment, which provides a gateway for the customer to order products in the organization. So it's basically, they probably have one system in order to take care of all the manufacturing and finance, which is much more efficient than if you have one separate information technology for all of this in place. So if you think of IT in an organization, you look at your information flow diagram and you think from, well, okay, we need a website here so the customer can order products. We need information technology here in order to store the information, the order information into a database. Then different people and departments need to access that information. So the financial department needs to make sure that it's only shipped when it's paid. Shipping department needs to know what is ordered. So we need some kind of information technology which connects all of this. And that is what information technology does. And that is what we'll talk about next week. So that is, oh yeah, so one more question. So business processes are specific tasks performed in an organization, and information flows is the flow of information to use for organization. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So business processes are the tasks, and flows are the flows of information. And usually with every task there is an information flow. So that was it for this week. So I won't see you next week, but the week after that, I will see you in person. At least I hope I will see many of you in person. So thank you very much. And we indeed ended before 6:30 a bit. Good luck with all the midterms if you have them. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. So thank you very much.